This story didn't start with shouting. It started with silence. The kind of silence that crashes into you after something goes wrong, when everyone in the room decides without saying it out loud that pretending nothing happened is easier than standing up. My father shoved my 9-year-old daughter away from the dining table on Christmas Eve. "That chair is for my real grandchild," he said. Then he pushed her. She fell hard, her knee hitting the wood floor with a sound I will never forget, not because it was loud but because of what followed. Nothing. No gasps. No outrage. No one stood up. And in that moment I realized something that took me 37 years to understand. Silence is a choice. My name is Emily Carter, and I used to believe that if I stayed quiet enough, small enough, agreeable enough, my family would eventually treat me like I belonged. I was wrong. Christmas Eve at my parents' place in Connecticut always looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine that hated real people. Pine garlands everywhere. Candles that smelled like winter forest, which is just tree sap with better branding. Red and gold decorations layered on top of each other like excess was the point. My older sister Lauren had insisted we all wear matching sweaters. Hers looked intentional, tailored, festive, flattering. Mine looked like a last-minute purchase from a clearance rack. My daughter Sophie kept tugging at the sleeves of hers. She was 9, all elbows and long legs, and the sweater had clearly been sized for a child Lauren once described as dainty. Translation: not my kid. At the head of the table sat my father Richard, holding court like he always did. He laughed loudly, spoke over everyone, and used his fork like punctuation. Next to him sat Lauren's daughter Ava, 5 years old, blonde curls, wide eyes, and already fluent in the language of being adored. Everyone called her Grandpa's girl. Like it was a title you earned. Sophie noticed everything. She always had. She watched how Ava got the first roll, the better plate, the chair closest to my father. She didn't complain. She never did. She just folded her hands in her lap and waited. That waiting broke something in me long before my father ever touched her. When we arrived, my father looked at me and smiled in that way that never quite reached his eyes. "Well, you made it," he said, like I had shown up uninvited. I smiled back. Because that's what I was trained to do. During dinner the joke started. "Blood's thicker than eggnog," my father said, raising his glass toward Lauren. Lauren laughed too loudly. My mother Susan laughed quietly. An aunt laughed because she always did when the room felt dangerous. Sophie didn't laugh at all. She stared at her plate. I swallowed my anger like I always had and focused on keeping my daughter calm. Christmas was almost over. I told myself I could survive one more night. That was my mistake. Lauren had made place cards with glitter and calligraphy. They were laid out carefully before dinner. Sophie picked hers up and stood smiling shyly. She wasn't trying to take anything from anyone. She just wanted to sit where her name was. She walked toward the table, toward the chair Lauren had placed her card on. The chair closest to my father. That's when I saw his face change. Not confusion. Not surprise. Ownership. "That seat is for my real grandchild," he snapped. Sophie froze. The smile slid right off her face like someone had pulled a string. "Get out," he added. And then he shoved her. Not gently. Not accidentally. A grown man pushing a child. Her foot caught the rug. Her knee hit the floor. The sound echoed through the room. And then nothing. 20 adults. Not one reaction. Someone's napkin slipped to the floor. Someone whispered, "Oh," like a glass had broken. My sister didn't move. My mother stared straight ahead. My daughter looked up at me, confused, not crying yet, like her brain couldn't understand how something so wrong had just happened. That was the moment everything changed. I was already moving. I helped Sophie up, my hands shaking as I brushed dust off her leggings. Her knee was turning red, already swelling. She clung to my sleeve like I was the only solid thing in the room. I looked around. No one stood up. No one said his name. No one asked if she was okay. Not even my mother. My ears rang. My vision narrowed. And then something cold and steady settled into place inside me. This ends now. I leaned down and whispered to Sophie, "I've got you." Because she needed to hear at least one adult tell the truth. Then I reached into my bag. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I placed a folder on the table between the cranberry sauce and the lie I'd been living my entire life. I looked directly at my parents and said 4 words. "You've been served." My father stared at the folder like it was a snake. My mother's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. My father opened it. He scanned the first page. His face drained of color. My mother's hand slipped, her glass hitting the table before tipping over. This wasn't anger. This was recognition. This was fear. I didn't wait for them to speak. I took Sophie's hand and walked out. Behind me the silence finally broke, not with comfort but with panic. Sophie was quiet in the car. Not the normal quiet where she was plotting how to convince me that dessert counted as dinner. This was the other kind. The kind that tightens a parent's chest because you can hear your child trying to make sense of something that never should have happened. Her knee was swelling red and angry. She pressed her lips together like crying would somehow make things worse. I hated them for teaching her that. "Hey," I said softly, "look at me." She turned her face toward the window instead. "You didn't do anything wrong." She swallowed. "He doesn't like me." My throat closed. "That's about him," I said carefully, "not you." She hesitated, then asked in the smallest voice. "Is it because I'm not real?" I pulled the car over. Right there on the side of the road, hazard lights blinking like the universe giving me a minute to breathe. "No," I said, and I didn't whisper it. I made it solid. "You are real. You are mine. You belong. Always." She nodded slowly, like belief was something she had to practice. By the time we got home my phone was already buzzing. Lauren. My mother. My father. Over and over. Lauren's voicemail came first, her voice tight, sharp. "What did you do? Are you insane? You're ruining everything." My mother's was next, sobbing quiet. "Emily, please, please don't do this. Think about what you're doing." As if I hadn't been thinking about my daughter hitting the floor. My father's voicemail was last. No yelling, no emotion. "You're not taking anything from this family." I didn't call back. I got Sophie settled on the couch with an ice pack and leggings and one of my old hoodies that still smelled like home. I made cocoa with extra marshmallows because sometimes parenting is just knowing when to add sugar to pain. We watched a Christmas movie. Sophie leaned into me like she was afraid the world might shove her again if she moved. I didn't explain it at the table because my family doesn't deserve speeches. That folder wasn't a threat. It was legal service. A court petition demanding a full accounting of my grandfather's trust. Every dollar in. Every dollar out. Every signature. Every transfer. It requested an immediate freeze on further distributions and asked the court to remove my parents as trustees. Because what I discovered wasn't confusion. It was diversion. It included exhibits. My name on the trust. The suspicious distributions that lined up perfectly with sudden blessings in Lauren's life. And the cover page. That's why my father went pale. He recognized it. He knew I wasn't guessing. The family group chat exploded. Aunt messages. Cousins I barely spoke to. "How could you do this on Christmas? You've always been dramatic. Call your father and apologize." One cousin texted privately. "I saw what happened, are you okay?" That meant more than she probably knew. Lauren posted on Facebook that night. "Some people will destroy a family for money." No names, just enough for everyone to know who she meant. People reacted with heart emojis like betrayal was inspirational content. No one asked if Sophie was okay. That told me everything. Then my sanction me for harassment and bad faith. Sanction. Like I was misbehaving. I leaned against the kitchen counter, heart pounding. My lawyer called before I could spiral. They're desperate, she said calmly. Desperate people throw sand. I swallowed. Should we do a DNA test? There was a pause. Then she said, not for court, your name is on the trust. Ink beats suspicion. That afternoon I sat across from her again. She slid a printout toward me. Trust principal at your grandfather's death. $480,000. Intended split. 50% to me. 50% to Lauren. My breath caught. So $240,000. She nodded once. Then pointed to the bottom line. Current balance $38,000. I stared at it. That's not possible. It is, she said gently. Now we show how. She slid another page across the desk. Approved distributions. Down payment. Vehicle. Medical. Education. All categorized like theft, dressed up as family support. They told me they couldn't help me, I said quietly. She didn't comfort me. She armed me. They took money earmarked for you and spent it. That week while I brushed Sophie's hair, she asked. Do I have to say sorry? I stopped. Sorry for what? For making him mad. I set the brush down. No, I said firmly, you don't apologize for someone else hurting you. Her shoulders relaxed like she'd been carrying that thought around for days. That night I made a decision I should have made years ago. No visits. No calls. No drop-ins. They stole my money. They don't get my child too. The first hearing was fast. Emergency preservation. Freeze everything. Their attorney was polished, smiling with her teeth but not her soul. She argued intent, family, understanding, biology. My lawyer asked for records and a freeze. The judge granted both. On the way out my father looked at me like he was trying to decide if I was his daughter or his enemy. Bold timing. When I got home Sophie was quiet again. Not the I'm fine quiet. The other kind. Are we in trouble, she asked. No baby, we're safe. Between hearings the real proof started arriving. Paperwork doesn't rush. It arrives the way consequences do, steadily without mercy. A week later my lawyer called me in. She slid one page across the desk. Look at the approvals. I scanned. Then I saw it. My mother's signature. Not once. Multiple times. I didn't cry. I felt steady. She knew. She always knew. At the next hearing their attorney tried one last pivot to biology. My lawyer didn't blink. My client's name is on the trust. Trustees have duties. Rumors are not a legal defense. The judge ruled. I won. $240,000. Plus interest. Plus legal fees. Plus penalties. $368,000 total. My father looked stunned. Lauren went stiff. My mother didn't move at all. I didn't feel victorious. I felt lighter. Winning doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like setting down a weight you didn't realize you'd been carrying for years. When I got home Sophie was doing homework, tongue sticking out in concentration. Like it was a normal Tuesday. I tried to cook. I tried to act like I wasn't shaking. Then I saw the box. The small plain cardboard box. The DNA test. It had arrived weeks earlier. My lawyer had told me not to touch it. And I hadn't. But the case was over. And the doubt was still there. Real. Not real. Real enough to hurt. I stared at the box and heard my father's voice. Real grandchild. Real family. Then I thought of Sophie on the floor. I didn't owe anyone proof. But I was tired of carrying uncertainty like it was my inheritance. Everything inside the box was neatly arranged. His sample was already included. That almost made me laugh. I swabbed, sealed and mailed it back like I was returning something defective. Waiting was worse than before court. Every day I told myself it didn't matter. Every day it did. Sophie processed quietly. Then one night as I tucked her in she said, "I don't want to go there again." No question. A decision. The results came on a Tuesday. Biological match. He was my father. My first feeling wasn't relief. It was fury. Because it meant the cruelty had been deliberate. They could have ended this decades ago. They didn't want clarity. They wanted permission. I sent the results to both of them. No explanation. Then I blocked them. A week later my doorbell rang. My mother stood there alone. Hands clasped, eyes swollen. Sophie was at school. Thank God. She didn't start with sorry. She started with strategy. Your father's been different. He wants to see Sophie now that we know. Now that we know. Like love activates with lab results. Then she admitted the truth. She had cheated once. My father suspected. And from that moment on he treated me like a question mark. And she let him. I waited, then said no. It shouldn't have mattered. You were my mother whether I was his or not. He doesn't get Sophie now. And you don't get to come back because the story is easier. I closed the door. That night Sophie asked. We're not going back, right? No. And this time it wasn't a promise. It was a boundary. 4 months later the money hit my account. All of it. They sold the house. The legacy. They're broke now. Quiet broke. We're no contact. The peaceful kind. Sophie laughs more. She sleeps through the night. She knows where she belongs. I don't flinch at holidays. Our life is smaller. And somehow much bigger. They lost their money. They lost their story. They lost control. And I got my life back.